And this time it's a little controversial in a way. If you saw my thumbnail, it was like, are your cleaning products toxic or not? And we're talking with Dr. Steph, or Dr. Stephanie, who we had on a little while ago, which was delightful. So I even put in our show notes, Dr. Steph, that I'm like, you should go ahead and go over there and watch the old one to watch us make friends in real time. Because we just had this really nice connection. And one of the things that I love is that you're talking about positive changes that we can make to affect our health, but you're also still letting us be on this spectrum, letting us finish up a little bit. And we're going to talk about a few different things, because I brought up things like, are there certain people that should maybe make this switch a little sooner than somebody else, or something like that. And Barb, you are absolutely in the right place. We just started a minute or two late, and I see a bunch of you guys are on. So it's very sunny here. We always do the weather announcement, and it's kind of chilly. It's kind of weird. It was like 3 weeks ago, it was like in the high 70s. Now it's getting in the high 50s. How about you, Dr. Steph, where you are?
So I'm based in Southern California, and it is actually, the weather is completely different than what you're experiencing. It's supposed to be nice and sunny here, right? But it's actually very overcast. It's been raining all week, and it's actually cold. So I have my little heater on right now. I'm cold, not used to the cold weather here. So yes, it's a little chilly. So I would definitely be excited about your weather, that's for sure.
Well, it was funny because I was taking meetings outside for a couple of weeks. Like, it was beautiful. Like, everyone's like, where do you live? And I'm like, North Carolina. It's bizarre. And maybe another time we could talk about how chemicals may be affecting that too, because you probably know that as well. So I'm going to switch it to full screen for you, and I'll just interject when I have some questions or questions for the audience for a little bit, because you are going to explain why we're even talking about this and give us some context to the conversation that I don't have.
Perfect. All right, sounds good. All right, thank you, Kathy. Thank you for having me on the show, and thanks everyone who's joined and will be joining later. I'm just so excited to talk about this topic of environmental chemicals that have been known to cause harm to our health, and I'm just excited to provide some context into why they're in our products, and then talk about how they can affect us, and talk about some great changes that we can make that are really easy and simple swaps. And like Kathy had said, I am such a firm believer in not wasting products. I think using what you have, getting it, so that way you can use it all up and then make the switch for a better product later on is always a really positive thing to do. So what we're talking about today, I don't want to overwhelm anybody. Just it's great information to have, and then that way you have it and you can use it forward in the future for whatever swaps you want to make. So my name's Dr. Steph Peacock. I am a holistic doctor based in Southern California. My training is in chiropractic. It was a 4-year training, and then I went to do my residency at TrueNorth Health Center, where I learned all about water fasting, juice fasting, and incorporating plant-based diets to help support our body's detoxification pathways. It was absolutely fabulous. So now what I focus on is primarily gut health and environmental toxins. Now, environmental toxins have been known to cause harm to our health. More and more studies are starting to come out now about it. So let's talk a little bit about what these chemicals are, why they're in our products, and how we can start to avoid them. So a little bit of context here. There are over 350,000 chemicals that are used worldwide. Now, within the United States, there's 84,000 that are registered with the Environmental Protective Agency to be used in our products.
What?
Now,
That's crazy.
I know, right? And so why are these chemicals why are there so many of these chemicals, and how did they pass all these different regulatory agencies to get used? Because less than 1% have actually been tested for human safety. So what happened was, at the height of the Industrial Revolution, when chemicals and chemical production started to really increase and were getting used and more products were starting to be coming out, there was an act, I believe it was in the 60s or 70s, I can't remember, I think it was 1976. It was called the Toxic Substances and Control Act. That act, when that was created, had very, very good intentions to try to monitor different chemicals that were going to be getting used. But what ended up occurring was 62,000 chemicals ended up just getting grandfathered into the act without getting tested, without getting acknowledged, without anything being studied to see their effects on our health. So they were grandfathered in, and that's where we get this 84,000 number that have been registered with the Environmental Protective Agency to be used in our everyday products. Now, there are a lot more studies that have been coming out in the last 20 years about specific chemicals that we're going to be talking about in a second that get used especially in a lot of our cleaning supplies. So, but how do we know that these chemicals are residing in us and are causing causing harm to our health? Is that there's now studies being conducted through the Center for Disease Control. They specifically conduct it through NHANES, which is the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey. And what they're doing is they're literally measuring through blood, through serum, through urine, through everything within the US population, how much chemicals there are that are residing within us. And to date, they're finding in 98% of the population, there's an average of 300 chemicals that they're finding that are in us. Now, that's just one study. So, and they conduct these every year. And so there's other studies that we can definitely talk about if we have time later on, because I know we really want to probably dive into, what are in the cleaning supplies that we're using. But what we know is that a lot of these chemicals can actually affect a few different areas of our body. So they can affect our mitochondria, directly affecting the mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of our cells. So that can result in energy, brain fog, decreased energy, fatigue, brain fog, chronic fatigue syndrome, things like that. They can affect our liver, they can affect our hormones, causing hormone imbalances, and they can actually affect our gut. So a lot of the different symptoms that we see arise from a lot of these things are gut dysbiosis, small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. We can see some sort of any sort of like bloating, irregular bowel movements, things like that are related to the gut. Because what's occurring is they can actually alter the types of bacteria that are in our large intestine, resulting in higher amounts of those bad strains of bacteria that are known to cause inflammation. They're also been studied now to potentially contribute to leaky gut, meaning that lining that's in our intestinal wall that actually separates our gut from our blood starts to become a little more permeable, and then it will allow more things to get absorbed within our system. So that results in inflammation. Another thing is the hormone imbalances. So we see a lot of different things like infertility, we see the fatigue, we see irregular menstrual cycles in women. A lot of different symptoms can occur from that as well. And then with the liver is actually conducting I call this like the mother of everything. Like it is our biggest detoxing organ. It controls over 70 different processes in the body. And something I've been linking to actually in my practice is finding that when the liver becomes overburdened with these different chemicals, we start to see different things occurring with cholesterol, with blood sugar issues and things like that, because that's where it's synthesized and regulated within the liver. So that's actually a very interesting thing to always look at when you're on any sort of health journey, is what am I exposing myself to within the home? Because they can slowly start to accumulate in our body, causing a toxic load, which starts to slowly overwhelm the body's ability to detoxify a lot of these chemicals out. And so what I mean by that is when we're getting exposed to these chemicals that we'll talk about in a second, these chemicals, they're not high acute exposures like a mercury poisoning, which does occur, but that's not within these products that we're talking about. What I'm talking about is chronic, like over time, low dose exposures that what occurs is it slowly builds up in the body, right? And then what occurs is that it just overwhelms the body's ability to eliminate them. So when that happens, it essentially causes like a sluggish liver detox pathway, a sluggish gut pathway. So we're not excreting the toxins. So if we're not excreting them, they just build up within the body and cause symptoms, which are the ones that I mentioned earlier. And so what Kathy we talked a little bit before we started the show, was kind of maybe mentioning, are some people a little bit more inclined to have more symptoms or symptomatology from these different chemicals than other people? And that's completely correct. So the reason why is I always like to kind of use this analogy as like a bucket. So we're all born with a different size bucket that due to genetics, due to what we were exposed to within the home, et cetera, like in our early stages. And that bucket could be small, it could be large. Now, over time, depending on how large your bucket is, right, how much you're getting exposed to, and this is not even just environmental chemicals, this is processed foods, this is stress, this is all kinds of things, right? So it will slowly start to fill the bucket over time. And then what occurs is that when you start to get an overflow of that bucket, that's when we see a lot of these symptoms arise. So it is dependent on your environment from when you're growing up. A certain part is definitely going to be genetics. Do you have any gene mutations that will affect your ability to detoxify? A really common one is the MTHFR gene. And things like that. So certain people definitely are a little bit more prone to experiencing symptoms from these, and I myself was one of them. So I did, for many, many years of my life, I dealt with hormone imbalances, gut health, fatigue, things like that, and I addressed almost everything that I could potentially in my health journey, and the missing link for me was the environmental toxin piece. And once I started to decrease my load that I was being exposed to within the home every day, that's when I started to see such significant results in my health. And so that's why it's such a big part of my practice is just addressing those, because believe it or not, these low dose exposures that you get over time can really affect the body. And like we talked about earlier. So yeah.
Well, and that's really great. I'm going to go to both of us for just a second. So I want to address one thing, because Apple says, I was born with a neurological, get that out, disorder. It would have multiple chemical sensitivities. It's been hell at times. So it sounds like Apple's already been looking for that journey. And I know that I'm dealing with some liver issues right now. So that's why I haven't publicly spoke about that yet. So one of the things I'm trying to look at, because I know during my childhood, both my parents were chain smokers. It was the 70s. God knows what people were cleaning with then. And so I know I was exposed to a lot of things. So it's very interesting now. I'm getting ready actually on Wednesday to have another step to get some more information. But this is kind of timely for me. When we talked about this, I wasn't going to have this procedure on Wednesday, so I wasn't thinking about it the same way. And then I got to thinking as it got closer to this, I'm like, I bet because right now my liver's not working the way it needs to work, that this probably is a really good thing for me to look at and address. And so I'm telling all of you, because I tend to be kind of like, I'll be okay. And that's for good or for bad. And I'm not saying other people should do that, but a lot of times I'm like, I was in grad school. I just got the detergent that was the cheapest, right? Now I'm in a different position, but it's just very interesting. So that's what I wanted to let you know. There's a little bit of a personal reason that I put that in too. And for everybody else, I brought chemicals out of my stuff. So we get to you get to see what I did right and wrong, and get suggestions. And Dr. Steph and I talked about this before. She's got some great ideas. But I think, and Joyce is saying you're cutting off and on, but I'm not hearing that on my side. Oh, there's a little buffering. Okay. Apple says it's fine. Apple's usually on top of all of it. Oh,
Okay.
And I'm going to go ahead and, I'm interrupting you, and then I'll let you get back to your thing. Marilyn is saying, I've been told that apple cider vinegar and baking soda and peroxide are good to use to wash my fruits and veggies. Are they safe for me to use?
Yeah. I'm peroxide, I'm a little iffy on, but I really love baking soda and vinegar. That is my absolute favorite. And I'll tell you what I do to wash my veggies. So I soak my the study that was done that showed the most efficacy in washing your veggies and fruits and produce and things like that is going to be using 2 teaspoons of baking soda with 4.5 cups of water, filtered water. So using that ratio. So, I'll fill up like a giant pot, and if I'm doubling the amount, I'm doubling the amount, but that's typically what I will do. And what I love about that too is vinegar is obviously super cheap, and that's a wonderful way to clean as well. But it's so simple too, to just get the baking soda out and then put it in there with the water and just soak for 10 minutes. Is 10 to 15 minutes, but 10-minute minimum is where they saw the best benefits in soaking your produce. So using that to help rid the products of any pesticides that may be have contaminated the outside of it is going to be your best bet.
That's great. And would you do that with all vegetables and fruits, or do you have some things like maybe mushrooms? I'm thinking we probably wouldn't do that with.
So mushrooms, I do that with actually.
Really?
Yes. I do. And what's funny is that I discovered this myself. I discovered it, and then a patient of mine had discovered it at the same time, but that it actually helped preserve the vegetables so much longer. So when we do this, actually, like, things last so much longer in the fridge. I don't know the mechanism by which I
Yeah.
did. I probably should have looked it up, but it's
Well,
pretty fascinating. Oh,
and so
go ahead.
baking soda, I don't know about, like apple cider vinegar. Like if you dip your, let's say strawberries, blueberries, things that tend to deteriorate and get moldy quickly, what the apple cider vinegar does is kill the things that make that. Kind of
Yeah.
like I use the crystal deodorant, the thing that's just the crystal, and the way it works as well is it stops the bacteria from starting to create that makes the smell. So it's not a deodorant in that it's not trying to cover anything up. But so I'll have to look up baking soda because that
Yeah.
it would.
Oh, very cool with the vinegar. That's so interesting. Yeah. No, and I love vinegar. I love vinegar for cleaning, and I know we'll chat about that soon. But and on the topic of pesticides, while we're just quickly talking about soaking, I'll bring up one quick thing that I find that's very interesting, and a lot of people don't know about this. So the EWG, the Environmental Working Group, they're fantastic. But they come out with a list every year, the Clean 15 Dirty Dozen. And for a long time, I actually used that list, and I still think it's good to reference here and there. But what we're now starting to see is that many of the pesticides that get used are actually called what we call systemic pesticides, meaning that they inject, when they're farming, they're actually injecting the pesticide into the ground, which gets into the roots and then actually gets absorbed directly into the vegetable or fruit or whatever it is that they're growing. So no amount of soaking, washing, cleaning is going to get rid of it. Now, what the EWG is doing is they're having that Clean 15 and Dirty Dozen list. But they're measuring the amount of pesticides that are getting used, not necessarily how toxic the pesticide is. So something that's on the Dirty Dozen list, right, that is supposed to be, have a ton of pesticides, right, they might actually have lower amounts of and they actually do. They found that they have lower amounts of the really toxic pesticides, and that's something on the Clean 15 list. Actually, one thing that might have like very low amounts of pesticides actually has one pesticide that's extremely toxic. So the relative toxicity between different chemicals that are getting used, the different pesticides, is like 6,000 fold. So there could be something that's getting used, right, that's like 6,000 fold. So what they're kind of putting on the Clean 15 Dirty Dozen list are going to be your ones that are the thin skin versus the thick skin produce, right? But the
And
thing
things
is
in the
that
ground versus things not in the ground. Like I think, because aren't potatoes and usually root vegetables are usually, just like you said, they were considered to be more of a culprit because they're just kind of living amongst where that fertilizer is. But it makes
yeah.
total sense that because the roots are pulling it up, it's pulling all the nutrients up, so it would pull all the chemicals up as well.
Exactly. So that's actually why now I don't tell my patients anymore or anyone I chat with to go by that list. I just say, as best as you can, try to buy local or try to buy organic. It just is the best as you can. It's expensive, we know, to buy everything organic, so do the best that you can. But I just tell people do that, and then whatever you're getting, whether it's organic or not, because there could be an organic farm that has a neighboring non-organic farm, and we know these pesticides, they're persistent in the environment, so they last a long time, and they travel through water, they travel through air, and so they can contaminate organic produce. So I always tell people, just soak your veggies no matter what, soak your produce no matter what. But that's just something I wanted to bring up since we chatted a little bit about washing the veggies. So trying to, buy as organic as or local as possible.
Well, and I love this too. And I'm thinking already, Dr. Steph, that this is going to be like a couple of sessions.
I know.
We're getting juicy already. Because let's see, Boston Vegan was asking, what about the veggie cleaner from Trader Joe's? And then when I was digging around at my counter, like seriously, I probably bought this in 2020, but then I was soaking things in apple cider vinegar at that point. And so I don't really use it religiously, but like it says organic on it, twice, which makes me think it's good, which may not be the clue I need. But this one at least has purified water, organic alcohol, denatured with organic lemon oil, sunflower oil, glycerin. Both of those were organic, natural mineral potassium hydroxide, Organic grapefruit oil contains no phosphates. That was the whole ingredient list.
Oh, that's actually not bad. The only thing I will say is the alcohol, only because when that's coming into contact with the foods and things like that, even with our skin, right? And we'll talk about that with like some of the antibacterial wipes. That actually causes a lot of irritation to the skin membrane as well as the gut membrane, right? So that actually, alcohol is one of the most well-known things that causes leaky gut. So that would be the only thing, but not,
Oh, nice.
so
No,
that's,
see, we're coming up with these total gems that you didn't
yeah,
even know
no,
you were going to be. Because, and I suspect, though, I don't have the Trader Joe's one. They private label stuff, and it looks like the bottle looks like this. So often you can see what Trader Joe's has private labeled. Like, remember when Miyoko's vegan butter was private labeled for a little while, or like they private label some tofurkey stuff, and the sprouted organic tofu that's in the little ones, there's only one other place that does that. So but and it is saying to rinse it. So if I spray to cover produce, rub for about a minute, and I'm not saying this instead of what you said, but I'm just going through these instructions. And then it does say to rinse. So I would think if I rinse vigorously, I would expect the alcohol to go away, because also it would go away as I'm drying it. And but do you feel like some of it still sticks on?
I do. So,
Okay.
especially depending on how thin the produce is, like your berries and things like that, it gets absorbed. Alcohol is one of those things, because it causes leaky gut. We know that it just gets absorbed so quickly, so it can get absorbed. But let's put it this way: that I would give that like a B. You know what I mean? Like on a scale of like an A to an F, I would give that like a B. So it's just like, if you don't have anything else, you don't have baking soda, you don't have vinegar, go for it. That's definitely better. But I would say many of the conventional produce cleaners, sorry to interrupt real quick, usually the ingredients are just horrific. And I was like waiting when you were listing the label. I was like, oh gosh, here comes something, and nothing came, just the alcohol. So I was like, okay, that's not bad.
And I never read it, so I was expecting something way worse. But like, they actually seem to own their two organic labels and list two organic ingredients as well. I was thinking what I would love to do with it. So if I'm traveling, this would probably be great, because like if I go into, let's say I'm in a hotel, I'm not putting
Yeah.
anything in that sink because I'm way
Oh,
too germophobic.
yeah, for sure.
Not
Not
drinking
happening.
out of that glass, not like, to me the worst thing is like if you drop your toothbrush, and I'm like, well, gotta go get another one. So so I
Like,
don't
go
trust.
for it.
So I could see spraying and rinsing so that I'm doing it piece by piece on my hand or something like that, or to take camping if I didn't have it, in case we ended up buying something else. But I agree, and I think what I love about the option you're proposing, we all have baking soda. And if you don't, it's stupid cheap.
So
Like,
cheap.
it's stupid cheap, and you have water because you're washing something. And what I did when, in the beginning of the pandemic, we didn't know what was giving us what, I was getting Misfit Market Box, which is a giant box of vegetables. So I'd fill up my sink, put a little apple cider vinegar. I may have put some baking soda, but I think it was apple cider vinegar. Let it soak for about 15 minutes. It was a big to-do because it was a lot of food. Like, now I'm getting a smaller thing, so it would just be one sink and then to let it dry. But then the bonus is, so like with my lettuces and stuff, let's say if I had a head of romaine, I could go ahead and cut that bottom off, get all that good dirt out of there, and then it's just ready to eat, right?
Definitely. Exactly. Yeah. No, and I love that what you brought up there. So, obviously we're never going to be perfect like 24/7. So, if you are traveling, you're camping, you have to do what's convenient, right? Because if we are going to try to make everything as non-toxic as possible, we're never leaving the house. So we're never going to, that's just going to be stressful, or that's going to be a huge laundry list of things to bring with you. So for sure, it's about finding things that, maybe it's not an A plus, but it's like a B, maybe even a C. Like, that's okay. It's not like you're using it every single day of the entire year, right? You're going to use it for a short amount of time, and it's better than nothing. So yeah, so that was a great point that you brought up. I love that.
No, I love this. And then I put up some little comments that you didn't see. Like, someone's, I don't use their coffee machines in hotel. If I stay in a hotel, I bring cleaning supplies. And like, it was super traumatic for me to going back out into the world. Last year, we traveled a couple of times, and to be in hotel rooms, I was like, how do I feel about this?
I know hotel rooms are, there's a lot of things you got to watch out for on those in those hotel rooms for sure. I watched this Instagram reel one time about how they sometimes clean the glasses they give you with the same brush that they'll use to clean the toilet, and I just have never looked at it the same. So now I'm just very similar. I have very specific things I bring with me and use when I go to
Yeah.
hotel rooms.
And I just, the, even before the pandemic, just so everyone knows, the pandemic didn't make me a little bit germophobic. Like flu season, I always got really germophobic, and I would behave differently. And also, we used to go to Disney in the fall, and Cheryl would get sick every year. She'd chews on her fingers, so we had to have some serious, nasty discussions. So,
Uh,
now we do have one more question, and then I'm going to let you go on, and I am watching the time for you because we do have to end promptly today. This one's very long. I watched a YouTube video of a microgreen grower who uses nothing other than water to grow his greens, but he does spray the seeds with hydrogen peroxide to keep everything very clean. That leads me to believe that it would be a good cleaner for produce. But I think we were saying that's not necessarily the case, even though it looks that way. And I'll let you explain why.
Yeah, definitely. And I think what they're trying to also do too is potentially prevent like any mold growth or things of that nature as well. I personally, so I have a personal interest in the whole microgreen thing because my husband actually owned a microgreens like greenhouse and sold at the farmers market when I worked at TrueNorth Health Center in Santa Rosa. He was selling at the farmers markets every week. It was wonderful. And so, I saw the way he did it, and he was able to do it all so well without having to spray with anything. It was all organic, all using filtered water, and everything like that. And so personally, I would say if you can find somebody that is not spraying with the hydrogen peroxide, I think that would be ideal. But again, right, so it's not terrible. And sometimes, if that's your only option of like someone that's buying, if what's being sold at the store, right, the nutrients that you're getting from microgreens are just fantastic, right? They're just chock full of all these different things like sulforaphane, for example, in broccoli sprouts that we know treats leaky gut and helps to fight cancer and helps to do a million things with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease and everything. It's just absolutely fantastic. So it decreases endotoxin load in the body, which are just toxins that bacteria can make within us that cause inflammation. I mean, the studies on sulforaphane are fantastic. So, I'm always, again, just going to take this route of, what are your options? If that's your only option, do it, because you're still going to get the nutrients from that. And if you're decreasing your toxic load in other areas, like within the home and the cleaning supplies or what you're washing your produce in and things like that, then you're fine, right? So that's my
I
answer.
love that. And do you know what your husband used to kind of sterilize, to keep the environment sterile?
So he didn't have to use, that was the thing. He had studied under, there was like this really, really fantastic microgreens grower out in Colorado. And he had questioned him, like millions of questions just to see. And there was nothing that he had to sterilize. So what you have to do is just continuously make the airflow in the greenhouse consistent and good, and really make sure you're constantly having fans that are blowing in the individual microgreens to prevent a lot of that mold growth. And you also have to keep the temperature at a specific state as well to prevent that growth, the mold growth and things like that. So there was nothing that he had to use to sterilize. And we actually still grow microgreens. We have like an indoor, not greenhouse, but it's like a little thing that we use, and we grow it under a light. And instead of using soil as our medium, we use either jute mats or coconut husks that are organic, and they're wonderful. You can get them from True Leaf Market. They're fantastic. And that actually creates a soilless medium, so that way you're not having to get the place dirty. And if you're going just for you and your family, it's like a really easy way to do it. Much cheaper.
True Leaf Market. Can you reuse those growing mediums?
No.
Okay, it's the same as soil. I know microgreen. Well, I don't know because I have my microgreen kit and I still haven't used it. But I know, and you were I'm gonna do it this week. I still have it. I had gotten it at the farmer's market, and it was so basic. And then I even have some other seeds that I bought when like the summer seed sales went on sale. So I got some really good organic seeds because I would love to do that, and I have some raised beds out there. So so it wasn't against, I was just thinking, ooh, with jute mats, if you could use them again and again. But I think it has to do with the mold and the growth and the bacterias that can happen. So it may, just so I'm saying that so everyone else knows, it's not because it was that. You're not supposed to reuse soil. See, I did my research a little bit.
You did, so you know it all. Now it's just about executing. Yes. So yeah, unfortunately, you do have to throw out the jute mats, but they're compostable. They're wonderful, same as the coconut husks. So I love them. And but yeah, it's also because the roots, they grow through it into the water. So you're just completely like, after you harvest your microgreens, like it's just there's no going back with that specific mat, unfortunately. But real quick little side tip before we get into the cleaning products. So you mentioned about the liver. So, the liver has three to four different phases of detoxification. And supporting each of them is very, very helpful in helping the overall decreasing the liver's toxic load. Now, there's phase 1, phase 2, phase 2.5, and phase 3. Phase 2.5 is actually directly supported by sprouts, by sulforaphane. So yeah, it's wonderful. It's a wonderful way. And that's actually, with a lot of my patients with their gut health, so that's a wonderful phase to support because that's also directly supporting bile that gets excreted from the gallbladder. So the liver makes bile that gets stored in the gallbladder. When we eat, it gets secreted into the small intestine to help break apart fats and then to help absorb nutrients. And a lot of people that are dealing with liver issues or maybe dealing with some gut health issues, it's actually wonderful for implementing some sprouts to help support that phase, to help keep things moving. So because that specific phase gets overwhelmed when there's any sort of systemic inflammation, mold, mycotoxin exposure, or stress. So I just talked about this on my Instagram this morning, actually. So it's kind of funny you brought this up. So,
that's awesome. I am a stress monster too, and I know we will at least keep the last few minutes because I have another question that kind of goes with what you were just saying, and then I have something I want to say about it too. So Liz Lena wants to know why locally grown produce is safe. I live in rural West Virginia and assume most farmers use lots of pesticides. And I want to put an aside because I know you're in California. I'm in North Carolina. So in North Carolina, the crops used to be almost all tobacco, right? And as the tobacco crops, like people sold off parts of their farms, lots of people have been redoing that land, and there's lots of small, like second career farmers now, sometimes doing super cool stuff, like edible flowers and sprouts and microgreens are a big thing, which, and where I live is kind of out in the suburbs, but there's lots of rural areas. So one of the things I learned from my local farmers market, which I really recommend because you can talk to the farmers, you can ask them questions, is there might be one organic producer that comes out. It's a decent sized farmers market. I mean, I think there's probably 40, 50. I mean, it's not like big city. But a lot will be putting labels up because Durham is kind of touchy-feely. Imagine that. That's why I live here. And so they'll put no pesticides used or certain things like that, because also one thing to remember is and I don't know how this affects in what we're talking about today, but there's some organic, pests. They're not really pest repellers because it's not pesticides. They can also be harmful if too much is used, or if, like, for the people putting it down, that can not as dangerous necessarily as these harsher chemicals that we're talking about. But there are a lot of transitional farms, and sometimes they don't transition here because someone was saying it's a stack of paperwork like this, so you have to pay someone. You're a small farmer, like you or me, that just bought 10 acres or something. We're not big, so it's a lot easier for a larger farm to pay the yearly fee, do all the paperwork, and then do that. And some of the people that don't necessarily, here at least I can say, who aren't organically certified, a lot of them use organic practices, or they try to be even cleaner in that, using as little as possible. Like maybe
Yes.
if they can pick off the insects, they'll pick off the insects or things like that. So I don't know if you really think about that or if that happens a lot in California. I would think a lot. Oh, it does? Okay. So
Yeah,
I'll be quiet
no,
and
so
you
I
talk
was
about the
one,
local
that was
produce.
the exact thing, same thing, you said it perfectly, that I was going to bring up was that, so it's a lot of them are just small farmers, right? They're not, they don't have like, ton, or they just started or things like that. So they don't have like all this, the organic certification is expensive. And they actually, most of the people I have talked to take such pride in their work that they actually do use 100% organic farming practices, but they don't have the organic certification labels. So that's what I meant by buy local. That yeah, there will be some farmers that don't have the organic certification. It's not organic. But talking with the local farmers and asking them their practices, that's where I found to be the most benefit, because I will find, even in Southern California, like I would say half the market's organic, half is not organic, or even in like there's a market in every little town. Some towns only have like one organic certification or maybe none, but you talk to the farmers and they're using those practices. So again, it's about kind of talking with them and seeing what they're using, and or if they're using anything, or things like that. So yeah, that's kind of what I meant when I said buy local. Yeah.
I thought that's what you meant too. So it's like, it's one of those things, and that's why I wouldn't necessarily talk about this topic on my show, except that I just really hit it off with you, and I really appreciate your approach, because like there's so many people out here that like throw everything out, which just fills up the landfill, and there's just like, and we all do things for different reasons. Some of us are plant-based for health, some of us are vegan for the animals, some of us do it for environmental reasons, and there's room for everybody. And I think there's room for, like some of this stuff I would totally give away. I have a list of things, so I can be shamed and you don't have to worry about it. And not that Dr. Steph is going to shame me, but I like the idea of like, if you have money, there's things you can do. Like, so in one way it might seem horrible, you're going to give that away, but you know what? Like a women's center for abused women, they need everything. When I was in grad school, and I'll go back, I remember I was so excited the day I could buy like shampoo, like at the then kind of Whole Foods, that I could get something more natural, because I just couldn't, and it's okay. And so I want everyone who's watching this now, wherever you are, it's going to be good. And this is why I want to have you on with these things. And this is why I think you're so special, is that you're sharing this information in a really supportive, embracing way. And we already learned that instead of spending any money on this, we just use baking soda. And so I'm hoping for some more little tips like that.
Definitely. Oh, well, thank you for saying that. That was so nice. And I really am, I am such a firm believer in that, right? It's just there's room for everybody. And it truly too, it does depend on where you are like in your health journey too. So let's say you don't have any issues going on and you have, 10 products that are very toxic or something. I don't know. So it's like, well, why not use them all up? And then, but if you're someone, it's like when I was dealing with a lot of my hormone imbalances and my gut issues and things like that, that's where I really started to, okay, I actually was just giving mine away, because I was like, I don't want to use the rest of it up because I know they're affecting my health. So I'm just going to get rid of it. And then I'm going to just purchase something that's going to be a little bit better for me. Right. But yes, I'm such a firm believer in either giving it away or using it up if you can. Right. Because again, the waste of the environment and things like that. So
And I want to point out again just what you just said. So it depends on what place you're in. So like for me right now, I'm more likely to give some stuff away than I was a month ago, honestly. So I just kind of want to put, because I usually am kind of every person, I make mistakes. I was doing a milk demo and I overfilled the milk jug, and someone was like, oh, I never thought you would do that. And I'm like, oh, it happens so much, right? We all have our places. So I know we have just a few more minutes left. So not just no minutes. We've got like about 20 minutes-ish, a little less. So let's talk products for this time, and then we can come back and we'll see, maybe we should limit the products we're talking about to kitchen products this time, but we'll see how time goes. I brought some non-kitchen products, and I tried to one of the things that did get an okay thing is the Better, you can't see that,
Better Life.
But I got it for $3 at Home Goods. So, and that's one of the things. So it's usually $7. It was $4.99, and I had found this some ridiculous weird place. This is an old one.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say I don't recognize like the label graphic or whatever. Yeah. Oh my gosh, funny. Well, yeah. So what I'll do is, I'll cover some of the really big ones, and then if we have time, we could, maybe just show and tell a couple. And if we run out of time, we can always do a part 2 where we actually dissect different ones or something like that. That could be kind of fun. So yeah, whatever everyone wants to do. So all right, so I'll go ahead and get started. So there's a few different things that are found in a lot of our conventional cleaning products. So I'm going to talk about a couple of them that are known human carcinogens. So meaning that they can cause cancer and they can cause all kinds of issues within our body. So there's formaldehyde. That's something that gets used quite often. That's actually used as something to help prolong the life of products. So that gets used quite a lot. Another one is called 1,4-dioxane. That gets used in most conventional cleaning products. And then another one is called triclosan. So I'm going to kind of dissect them, each one. So for the formaldehyde, that one is used in a lot of different things. Like I said, again, just as a preservative. It's not even found just in our cleaning supplies. It's actually found in a lot of makeups. It's found in a lot of upholstery and furnitures and things like that. But it's used to prolong the life of a product. So that's important to just be aware of. Formaldehyde is a general one. The 1,4-dioxane, that will be listed on the ingredient label as is. Now that's been recognized by quite a few different areas, different governing groups as a human carcinogen. So that one's definitely super important to make sure that you are avoiding if possible. That one is also a known endocrine disruptor, meaning it disrupts our delicate hormonal balance. And then the other one is triclosan. So that's the one I really wanted to bring up because Kathy had talked about antibacterial and germaphobe and things like that. And so that gets used in pretty much almost all antibacterial. When anything says antibacterial, most of the time it's going to contain some form of triclosan. And it does go by other names. I cannot remember the names right now. I can send that to you so you can share in the show notes. So triclosan, it is a hormone disruptor and it's also a human carcinogen. So that's definitely important to try to be aware of those three for sure. The next one that's going to be really big is actually called phthalates. And I think we talked about this when I was on the show last time. I can't remember. It was in my ebook that was in the bundle. So so phthalates, those are known endocrine disruptors, but they don't actually go by phthalates in the ingredient list. They go by the word fragrance. So when anything ever says fragrance or parfum, then that's a major loophole industries can use to actually put that product in there to allow, so without having to put the word phthalates in. It's because it's proprietary info and it's not deemed necessary to actually be listed on the ingredient label. So when anything says fragrance or parfum, absolutely you want to be avoiding those for a few different reasons. So the first one is, well, I'll explain really quickly what phthalates do. So this is a huge one. So phthalates, either in the low, they go by different molecular weights. So there's a low molecular weight and a high molecular weight. So the low molecular weight ones are going to be the ones that that bind fragrances to a product. So that's why it's termed fragrance. But so it extends the life of it. So anything that has like a nice smell or things like that is going to have that fragrance in it. So that's why, those air fresheners, those candles, a lot of these cleaning supplies and detergents and things that smell good usually unless it says it's just an organic essential oil blend, which is the only thing that's okay to use for that smell, that's fine. But you don't want to be using something that just says fragrance or parfum, and then you're just like, oh, okay, so that probably has phthalates. So what phthalates do is they are known to disrupt our hormones. So they directly affect our delicate hormonal system, especially estrogen. They're big in affecting estrogen as well. They're linked to overweight. They're linked to type 2 diabetes. They are linked to reproductive harm. They're linked to altering our gut bacteria, so they can increase levels of the bad ones and decrease levels of the good bacteria within our gut, which we know we need a nice homeostasis of the bacteria within the colon to create a good ecosystem that will create less inflammation in the body. But another thing that phthalates have as well, something else that can go under the term fragrance specifically, is a couple of different carcinogens. So let me back up again. So fragrance can actually not just house phthalates, but it actually houses over 3,000 different chemicals. So I forgot to mention that. So industries can use the word fragrance and it will house all different kinds of, it's not just phthalates, it's other types of chemicals too, like benzene, toluene, can't remember the third one, but those are known carcinogens. They also release polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, PAHs, which are also carcinogenic, and then also the phthalates as well. So that's another one. And then another big one is going to be parabens. So those are also, they're found in a lot of cleaning supplies, also in makeups as well. So be careful with that. And they're also a known preservative as well. And they go by different names as well. There's just so many names for all these different things. It's hard to remember all of them. But parabens they're also endocrine disruptors, but they also, there have been quite a few studies now that have been linking parabens to human breast cell tumors. So that's another one as well to be just aware of when you are purchasing any sort of cleaning supplies. And then let's see, I think that's kind of all the ones that I wanted to. There is one more. It's called it goes by quaternium, and there's different variants of it. It's QUAT. If you see that starting in the label of any of the products, those are known skin irritants. So if anyone here is dealing with any sort of like allergic reactions or dermatitis or eczema or things like that, that's definitely something that you want to be aware of as well to avoid. And that's a big one as well. So and I think it's like quaternium 17 and 24 are the two that have been highly linked to disrupting our skin like ecosystem. So those are big ones. But what I wanted to mention real quickly about the phthalates. So that's probably the most common one that gets used in so many of the different products. Again, that's when it's under the word fragrance or parfum. Now, it's not just when you come into contact like dermally with it, when it's touching your skin and because it'll get absorbed, but it's actually, the majority of us are actually getting exposed to them through either inhalation or ingestion of them, because what's happening is that they get released into the air and then they get trapped in our house dust. So there was a study done a few years ago that measured the levels of BPA, phthalates, and flame retardants in our household dust, and found that 100% of households had measurable levels of them, and found that the majority of our exposure to them is through inhaling them or literally ingesting the dust particles that are floating around. So that's why, it's not just about trying to avoid those, but it's about, try to wet dust or vacuum, often, not every day, but as often as you can to try to get the dust out of the home. And then also maybe considering opening your windows for 10 to 15 minutes a day to allow whatever may have been used in the environment to flush out, to just allow for some better airflow within the home. And then you can also get like an air purifier or like a box fan. So air purifiers can be a little pricier. So box fans are pretty cheap, and you can use that to just kind of help filter air. But air purifiers are wonderful. My favorite one is Air Doctor, and they're wonderful because they trap. Kathy, I feel like you'll love this because the micron size that they trap the particles are amazing for viruses, for actually they did studies for COVID. They actually show for mycotoxins like mold. It's the best on the market for actually trapping mold particles in pet dander, things like that. So they're wonderful. And I actually have a couple in the home, and I can give you my link. I have my link gets you like 30 or 40% off of their products or something, and they're really
If
wonderful.
you send it to me, I'll put it on the show notes too. And nobody else can see me, but I'm gonna run to the side and look at the brand that we got and get your opinion on that if we have time. You've got about 5-6 minutes.
Okay, perfect. No, that sounds great. So ideally trying to just avoid a lot of the different chemicals that I just mentioned. So some of my favorite products are going to be, and I brought them here, so I'll show you guys while Kathy is getting the thing for the air purifier, is she already showed one of them that I love. So Better Life, they're fantastic. They're one of my favorite brands. You can get like a giant thing here. This is dish soap. So I use this, I'll get a giant thing of it, and then I just fill like a glass jar with it and just use it for dish soap. It's really wonderful. I love this one. I decided to start showing a couple products that
That's
I have.
great. No, I can hear you. And it's blue. Blue is the one. It has a cover that we can take off and wash and put back on, in addition to filters.
I've actually never heard of blue. So there's a couple other ones that I really love, but I could look into blue and see because I like to look at the testing. So I like to see how well is it filtering right. So another good one is like Austin IQ Air. They're really fabulous. They're a little bit on the pricier end though, which is why I actually like Air Doctor, because they're actually pretty cheap.
Okay.
For like how well it does. And there's one other one that I really love, and I can't remember the name right now, but I do post about this all on my Instagram at Dr. Steph Peacock. I'm always talking about air purifiers and all these things. So but Better Life, that's the one that you have there. I love that.
And I want to show them this one. Let me see. Here
Yeah.
Oh, I got to do it over here. I think this is going to do it. Yeah. Okay. So this is the old way it looked. I got one of these. I just wanted to mention, so at Home Goods, I got this on sale for $3, so I've been able to find it at Home Goods. And this kitchen scrubber is the only thing that works really well on my glass stovetop. Like, it gets anything off. So I had gotten this some random place, probably TJ Maxx 10 years ago, and found this one, but also then I found this odor and stain eliminator because we have pets.
Oh,
So,
okay.
and I'm going to switch
Amazing.
back to you.
Oh, it's great. No, I love that you show that. That's wonderful. Yeah. So, they make all kinds of stuff. It's not just the dish soap stuff, and that's wonderful. And I love how you mentioned, something, because a lot of the ones that have some of these harmful chemicals in them, they are wonderful at like getting rid of residue and things on stuff. So one thing that I found to be just absolutely the best at getting rid of anything, and I'm telling you, I have so many people love this. So and they're actually my favorite non-toxic company. They're called Branch Basics.
Oh, let me go back to the full. I have this in the notes so they can see the full label. There we go. Branch Basics.
Yeah, so they're called Branch Basics. They're wonderful. So this is a powder, and what you do is you just leave it on the surface that you're trying to clean, and then you scrub it, and then you'll let it sit for like 10 or 15 minutes, and then come back and just wash it off. I'm telling you, it'll just slide right off. It really is like a miracle worker. So I love this. But what's amazing about this company is that, so I'll show you their other cleaning product that I use too. So they have a concentrate. So it's a concentrate. You'll buy like this big bottle of it, and then they'll send you a bunch of like 4 to 5 bottles for different things. So it'll be empty bottles. And it will be like, so this one here is like an all-purpose. They'll have one for cleaning, bathrooms. They'll have one for cleaning windows, things like that. And they'll list here on the product for you, they'll show you, okay, so we want you to fill up to this line for water, and then use the concentrate to fill up the rest of the way. And it's wonderful. I've only replaced this once in my entire life. Like seriously, like the last few years I've used it. So it's wonderful, and you can use it for everything. And this combined, the all-purpose cleaner combined with the oxygen boost from the company is wonderful. And so, and I think I don't have any affiliate links with them, but some of my colleagues do. You can usually find one for like 10 to 15% off their products. And I mean, you're really buying like kind of like a one-time thing, and it'll last you a long time. So, so I absolutely love that company. And the last one I wanted to bring up here, because I actually just purchased these, but people love those, wipes, like the Lysol wipes, and those are antibacterial and usually have the triclosan in that. We talked about that's the carcinogen. So Aunt Fannie's, they make these wonderful wipes. They're fantastic. They're vinegar based, and they also have wonderful just all-purpose scrubbers too that come in bottles. I love this brand, Aunt Fannie's. I've never used the other stuff. A lot of my patients haven't loved it, but I'll use their vinegar wipes because I love just having something I can quickly use to wipe down a countertop if I need to. Vinegar based, absolutely fantastic. And then the last thing I did want to mention too was, how we talked before about soaking your produce in pesticides. I'm sorry, soaking your produce, not pesticides, in baking soda or vinegar. Baking soda and vinegar make wonderful cleaners too. You can literally Google just like homemade vinegar or baking soda, or it's a combination, right? Cleaner, house cleaner, and it'll give you the ratios that you can use. It even works well for cleaning your drains. I'll use vinegar and baking soda to clean my drains out, and things like that. So yeah, it's really great. You don't have to, invest, or these really aren't that expensive, but that's why I like these companies, because they're actually very reasonable.
And I think I've seen Aunt Fannie's at Home Goods. I'm going to go looking, because I'm going to go do a couple of things, and I'm going to go looking for those as well. And let's see, Shar was talking about what about only using vinegar to clean, and Apple answered that you talked about that a little bit at the beginning. I was wondering if if they may have meant, I think that you don't want to hurt your surfaces by putting just vinegar on there. You want to dilute it, because depending on what kind of counter surface you have or something like that, that could cause an issue. Would that be correct?
Yes, it can. So yeah, you definitely want to dilute it. I don't know the exact ratio off the top of my head, but I have used just vinegar, and it's a small amount. You can use this much vinegar in some water, a big thing of water, and I'll use that to mop my floors, honestly.
And I've done things like squeeze some citrus juice, a little lemon juice, or because I am team scent. If I'm going to do some task I don't want to do, I want the whole house to smell good, which is why I've gone to Myers, which I'm not going to be using anymore. And we'll talk more about some alternatives, because I have some ideas and I'm going to do some research.
Oh,
yeah.
I can't wait. Well, I love that you said that. And I will say, when it comes to the essential oils, if you're ever buying one, my two favorite brands are going to be, so it's, oh my gosh, okay. It's not Young Living. It's, there's another one. Okay,
doTERRA?
Yes, doTERRA. I love doTERRA, and then let me grab the other one I have here.
And there's a woman, Elizabeth, and her sister that sell doTERRA here in the Triangle area, and so we do some stuff with them. So I have a couple of their oils, because some of them you can use in cooking too.
Yes, yeah.
Now you need to go, but if you can answer this one quick question, and we may have to do this more than once a month.
And I wanted to show the other one real quickly. It's a new brand, but I love them. They're called Aroma True, and they come with a diffuser that doesn't require water. So it's so that way it's Aroma True, AROMATRU, and it comes, and you can actually get their diffuser that I have that doesn't require water, so that it's actually really cool. So you don't get that potential mold growth. I mean, it's no big deal if you use one with water, but it's great.
No, I love that. And you need to go, but can you say in one sentence, what laundry detergent do you like best? Or do all the brands carry all the cleaners?
Molly's Suds. That's my favorite.
And I think those may be a local company to me.
Oh, really? Oh, very cool. Yeah, they're wonderful. I absolutely I've been using their stuff for years. They're fantastic.
And you are late now, young lady. So it is time for you to go.
Yes,
but,
all right.
Oh my God, I could keep you all day. We will maybe do this more than once a month. Let's talk and see how it works with your schedule. Everyone said we totally want to see more of you. Okay.
Yay. Oh, I'm so glad. Well, thank you, Kathy, and thanks everybody. I'll chat with you guys soon.
Okay, everybody have a good day. Bye, Dr. Steph.